I wanted to introduce to you our next panel, which is going to be about the research perspective, and it's a panel of research information producers. What are the challenges the research information producers face when they are talking about Latin American consumer, Latin American media, and Latin American advertising? So I'd like to introduce to you Gonzalo Ramos Otero, Executive Director of Ceop Market Research. Please, Tomas Gennari, Intelligence and Business Development Director, Business Bureau. John Kim, Managing Partner, HIG Growth Partners. And Giovanni Rodriguez, Specialist Leader at Deloitte Consulting, LLP. So we have two companies, Ceop and Business Bureau, who are very much in the nitty-gritty of researching the Latin American consumer. We have John, who's from HIG Growth Partners. It's a company backed by HIG, right, which is a big venture capital private equity firm. I understand more than $8 billion under management, if not more. And what John's group does is invest in relatively smaller businesses. And some of them are in Latin America. I'm sure many of you or all of you have heard about Batanga. That's one of their investments. And finally, Giovanni, who doesn't know Deloitte. It's a blue chip company. And so it's going to be very interesting to hear all their perspective from their different standing points. We want to start this with a few questions from the moderator, from myself to the panel, and even in the meantime, if you have any questions or comments, please go ahead and ask, and Pilar will bring the micro and you can ask the question. Gonzalo, where do you see the main challenges facing the Latam research industry and in general, and the Latam pay TV industry in particular?
Hello, how are you all? Voy a hablar en castellano. Yo quería resumir en dos grandes temas los desafíos para la industria de research en Latinoamérica y con foco en lo que es TV paga. La verdad es que nosotros entendemos, y más que todo desde nuestra experiencia, después de trabajar varios años en la región, una de las cosas que vemos desde la oferta, y cuando digo desde la oferta es desde los que producimos investigación y los clientes, hay un tema que es antiguo, pero no por eso deja de llamarnos la atención, y hemos tenido prácticas muy interesante, que tiene que ver con el lugar y el posicionamiento que tiene el Market Research en Latinoamérica. ¿A qué me refiero? Me refiero a que muchas veces la alta dirección y el middle management o las gerencias toman los datos duros internos y los duros de mercado, que sabemos que, como comentaba Horacio, en algunos países son bastante complicados. Se manejan por ventas, se manejan por costos, por inversiones, a la hora de lo que para nosotros creemos que es lo importante en los que hacemos research, que es tomar decisiones. El desafío concreto para nosotros en Latinoamérica es trabajar desde la industria, y tiene mucho que ver una parte en los que producimos la investigación y otra parte tiene que ver con los clientes, en generar esta igualdad en el posicionamiento que tiene un dato duro para tomar decisiones y para planificar. Nosotros lo que vemos es que hay una debilidad que se puede transformar claramente en una oportunidad. Quiero decir con esto que poner en el mismo lugar y sopesar y complementar y hacer sinergia entre lo que son datos duros y lo que es la investigación de mercado. Esto que parece trillado en Latinoamérica realmente en nuestra experiencia vemos que algunas empresas lo hacen bien, están adelantados, o algunos países más que otros. Hay grandes diferencias, como comentaba hace unos minutos Horacio, en cuanto a los niveles y desarrollo del market research en los distintos países. Y nosotros lo que también queríamos comentar hoy era, y bueno, ¿qué hacemos con esto? ¿Cómo hacemos para que se cree un nuevo posicionamiento del market research en la toma de decisiones y en la planificación? Porque nosotros trabajamos con varias empresas globales y regionales que a lo largo del tiempo han hecho 2 investigaciones en un país, una en otra, sin ningún plan, sin ninguna programación, y a lo largo de 3 años hemos podido ver cómo, acompañando y generando algunas acciones, se han transformado en departamentos que han ayudado a tomar decisiones corporativas del más alto nivel. Entonces yo quería ir a algo muy concreto y para cerrar este primer punto, que es cómo lograr el desafío de que el market research se meta en el planeamiento y en la toma de decisiones de la alta dirección en la región latinoamericana. Básicamente nosotros hay un vehículo que nosotros vemos cada vez más y lo hemos utilizado y apoyado, que es no trabajar en investigación de mercado, sino en generar información de business intelligence. ¿Por qué digo esto? Porque se integra información dura con información que generamos los research producers, y esto tiene un alto impacto en la dirección. Es un vehículo que nosotros hemos implementado y ha generado cambios culturales internos en las compañías. Es un acompañamiento. Con esto quiero decir que hay empresas que hemos empezado haciendo focus group y hemos terminado con planificaciones anuales y realizando 12 o 15 estudios programados en el año con un objetivo, que muchas veces, por lo menos en Latinoamérica, es muy disímil cómo se maneja esto. Ese es un primer punto. Otro que parecería bastante trillado es el tema de trabajo en equipo. Muchas veces nosotros tenemos un solo interlocutor y el gran punto para nosotros es trabajo en equipo con no solo un cliente interno, sino la alta dirección. Para nosotros, y ahí metiéndome en un tema de la regionalización, es fundamental que la alta dirección participe en el desarrollo y en el acompañamiento del market research. Y no solo el cliente, sino todo lo que es aquellos proveedores satelitales. A esto me refiero con agencias de publicidad, agencias de diseño, y pueden ser compañías con las cuales hemos hecho, por ejemplo, reingenierías de proceso para modelos de atención. Ese es otro de los temas importantes que nosotros consideramos. Y en definitiva, que la consultora, en este caso nosotros, esté enfocada a ayudar a tomar decisiones. También esto parece trillado, pero no es así. Muchas veces se termina entregando un informe. Nosotros tenemos que tener alineados recursos humanos, procesos y tecnología que apunten a la generación de toma de decisiones. Y eso es un punto en el cual debería trabajar la industria en general para poder lograr cada vez un rol más protagónico del market research. Finalizando a esta pregunta, yo les diría que la propuesta es que básicamente trabajemos en equipo, y me parece que ese es un punto fundamental para lograr que el market research se logre posicionarse como lo que es, ¿no? Una ayuda de toma de decisiones. ¿Tengo un minuto más? Medio. Bueno, la verdad es que había otro tema y que me parece de la misma importancia, disculpen que me haya excedido, que es la tensión que hay entre lo regional y lo local, digo como desafío. En este sentido nosotros creemos que también hay un posicionamiento interno, y en ese sentido me refiero en general a Latinoamérica, a las compañías globales y regionales, en que no se logra visualizar el beneficio de la unificación y de la distinción por países, el valor agregado y la sinergia que genera esto. Y también hay una visión negativa en términos de de generación de pérdida de poder, de lobby, etc. Con lo cual, las barreras que yo veo y los desafíos tienen mucho que ver con temas organizacionales, para que Latinoamérica logre dar un salto cualitativo y posicione al market research regional en el lugar que para nosotros tiene que estar, que es en las decisiones estratégicas de una compañía, obviamente en las tácticas también, ¿no? Y de eso, bueno, podemos hablar ya cuando surjan otras opiniones. Gracias.
So to briefly summarize in English what Gonzalo was saying, one of the main challenges is how to get market research really count for C-level, for the C-level in companies, for the leaders of companies. How it's almost maybe a cultural transition that needs to be made, that information is really critical, and obviously it's critical information, but that the C-level perceives it as critical information and is ready to invest in that type of resource, such as market research. Second one, teamwork, more need of teamwork, if I understood well. And the third one, the tension between the regional and the local in the organization of corporate organizations, right? I would like to ask Tomas Gennari from Business Bureau, Business Development Director. What do you think? Where do you disagree? Not so much where you agree. Where you disagree with Gonzalo, and what would you like to add? Right, so we get a bit of picture of.
Thank you, Marcos. Actually, I agree 100% with what Gonzalo just said. I'm sorry about that. Because we do think that team working from us, consultancy and market research companies, we do need to grow a lot of more teamwork with our clients. We do need to achieve a better teamwork with our clients. We shouldn't just handle raw data or data in our softwares and let the clients handle it themselves. We really need to work with our clients. And in terms of business intelligence, that is quite important as well. We do need to translate all the raw data because we have, as we just previously said, we have like 1 million data in our databases and that we update every single month. We can just hand that out to our clients. We need to help them understand it with business intelligence tools. So I do agree with what Gonzalo just said, and I wanted to add a couple of more things, because from a market research point of view, we do see a couple of challenges ahead of us. First of all, when we speak about Latin America, we usually define it as just one single region where everyone is alike. And what we have found out, doing market research in every single country, is that that cannot be stated without being like really, really mistaken. Latin America are 43 countries. Each and every one of them, they have different cultures. They have different ways of doing business, with programmers and cable operators. And when you start going inside those countries, each city, each town, when you go from urban areas to rural areas, things really start to change. With our market research methodologies, we have started to crawl from town to town. And the truth is that we cannot guide our market research activities based on what happens on the big cities. That is a really, really big mistake. We cannot make decisions based on market research done in the main cities. And that is actually one of the second challenges that we have right now in the market research perspective. Latin America has a complete lack of secondary information structures. There are non-official entities, like official government entities, that gather information from the paid TV industries. I know that some countries do have some pretty well official entities that gather the information, but the problem we have in Latin America is that that information cannot be trusted, because that is based on, for example, what cable operators report to the official entities, we already know that cannot be trusted. For different issues, numbers are somewhat changed or underreported. So when we talk about market research in Latin America, we really need to focus on what our reality is. Because if not, we rely on market research methodologies that are based on countries like United States, like in Europe, that are desk research. You can do interviews in the main cities and then infer from that to the rest of the country. And you would know that there will be like an error margin, and you will be okay with that. But in Latin America, when you go from urban areas to rural areas, the differences are enormous. So that is one of the main challenges that we see ahead from us, that we really need to change and adapt our methodologies to the Latin American reality. We cannot rely just on the most common kind of market research, and we need to create methodologies that are accustomed and that are ad hoc to our reality in Latin America.
Thank you, Tomas. Now to Giovanni Rodriguez. Giovanni is mostly involved at Deloitte with social technology, and you help to design new services in the digital, mobile, and social arena. Within that space, where do you see the main challenges in terms of getting accurate data, getting good research, or producing good research? Right. We're going to talk about the getting in the next panel, but this is about production. Yeah.
Okay, so there might be a happier story here when you look at social technology, but let's start with the challenges. When you're looking at anything Latin American, and by the way, just for background, I do advise businesses on engagement strategies for customers, for employees, and for partners. And it's not just social technology, it's actually a tool set of technologies that includes social, includes mobility, includes social data, which I'll talk about in a moment. But when you're looking at things Latin American, and I have experience advising the White House Hispanic Initiative, and I've been looking at the Latin American social media market. I'm part of an organization called Latism. And also working on some large, high-impact social interventions at the public sector level. For example, I just got back from Puerto Rico. We're collaborating with the Foundation for Puerto Rico to see if we could use social technology to help with some of the systemic problems in Puerto Rico involving youth. But when you look at Latin America, and just looking at the challenges, I typically have to start by saying, we first of all, have a very low trust culture, and that's actually, I think, probably the main reasons why research is so hard in this area. If you look at all the problems, so many of them, derive from trust. There's another one that's a little bit more surprising for people that don't know Latin Americans, and I've grown up with this, but we're very status conscious. And because we're very status conscious, we actually hold on to the hierarchies we create, and that tends to inhibit the flow of information. And finally, and this is especially true of Puerto Ricans, by the way, I'm Puerto Rican, I come from the northernmost part of Puerto Rico, New York, and I know this. We're very insular. We look inside ourselves. It's very hard for us to look out and connect with the rest of the world, and actually that inhibits vision, just being able to see beyond what we do. So these are pretty big cultural, societal problems, and the happy news is that with social, this is another realm, and social is open. Information wants to be free. And in Latin America, I think most of you are probably aware of this, but Latin Americans outperform all other ethnic groups in social media. And this is true in Facebook. As a percentage of our group, it's a much larger percentage of Latins who are engaged on Facebook. On Twitter, I think there's only one other group. It's African Americans, and they just passed us, but we're very competitive, so we'll see. Next year, look at those numbers. We also buy more smartphones. We're the first to buy really fancy TVs. This is happy news, and my view is that our swift adoption of social will create new open channels for communication, and Also, new sources of information, market research. So as you know, Twitter is not just a really interesting, fun tool for communication. It happens to be the world's largest real-time consumer database of intentions, what people are thinking, every moment of the day. And Twitter is just, this is 2012, I'm based in Silicon Valley today, and I can tell you there are probably half a dozen companies that are poised to become the next Twitter, something a little easier. And this information you can aggregate and you can report. And I'll talk a little bit later about what you can actually do with some of these things, because this is what we're advising companies to look at. With this resource, which is open, you can actually tear down those barriers that have made the Latin American market so impenetrable. It's an opportunity. Now, those other problems, by the way, don't go away, magically. We're understanding in Puerto Rico when we're designing, the program for Puerto Rico. But it's something that I believe all brands have to look at for one reason. Oh, by the way, yes, look, we have the status conscious, insular, low trust culture. We're also very, very competitive, and what we're seeing right now is a culture of haves and have-nots. And I believe that the haves are going to, create a lot of envy, and we're going to copy each other and start, practicing some of the things that the best businesses are doing today. So.
Thank you, Giovanni. So social media as a new source for research, that's interesting. By the way, yeah. The handle on Twitter for this event and the one starting at 2 p.m. is #Latam Summit. Okay, so if you want to know that. Going a little bit back to methodologies and research methodologies, and this question is first for Gonzalo, to tackle some of these issues and challenges you and Giovanni and Tom have talked about. What methodologies, in general terms, do you try to use and why? En español.
Un poco las metodologías que estamos utilizando para Latinoamérica o para Panamérica tienen relación un poco con uno de los temas que toqué hacia el final, que es esto de yo le puse como título la tensión entre lo local y lo regional. Y básicamente, de nuevo, yo dividiría en oferta, o sea, los que estamos del lado de generar la información, que las problemáticas que veo ahí es que tenemos que, entre comillas, lidiar o vincularnos con varios países, con distintas compañías que tienen estilos de cultura de gerenciamiento distintos, operaciones distintas, modelos de atención distintos. Eso desde el lado de la oferta, y hay desniveles también muy importantes desde el punto de vista del desarrollo del market research en cada uno de estos países. Esa es la realidad desde la oferta en América Latina. Y desde el punto de vista de la demanda, y después voy a cuáles son las metodologías que usar, pero quiero hacer esta introducción, desde ya que hay grandes diferencias en idiosincrasia, ya lo vimos en los videos que mostró Horacio, me refiero también a temas socioculturales, socioeconómicos, a dificultades para lograr hacer un approach en la investigación, y ahora me voy a referir un poco a cómo lo hacemos, ¿no? Porque hay que ser muy cuidadoso en términos de cómo acercarse a esa realidad que es heterogénea y global al mismo tiempo. Y ese es el punto que quiero destacar. Nosotros tenemos una visión que es lograr una visión unificada, pero que al mismo tiempo distinga. Sí, esa sería la definición. Para esto, nosotros lo que hemos trabajado y nos está dando buenos resultados es, con respecto a las etapas de las actividades de investigación de mercado, las centralizamos. Las centralizamos, me refiero a la toma del dato, que es la primera etapa en research, el procesamiento, y eso estamos logrando poniéndoles estándares de calidad, justamente estaba comentando también Horacio el tema del ISO 9000, estamos trabajando en esa línea nosotros para estar con la ISO 9000 hacia este fin de año. Y imagínense que en Latinoamérica uno tiene escalas distintas, en Chile es de 1 a 7, en Argentina de 1 a 10, en Paraguay nadie te dice que las cosas son feas, la misma plataforma, la misma atención que da una empresa de telefonía celular en Paraguay, donde nosotros atendíamos a ese cliente, daba vamos a poner un 7, en Paraguay daba un 9 y era lo mismo. Con lo cual, ¿qué metodologías usar? Bueno, como digo, primero con un objetivo, tener este objetivo de lograr tener una visión integrada y que genere sinergias. Desde ya hay que trabajar con trackings. ¿Por qué con trackings? Porque hablando de TV paga, y depende en el anillo que pongamos a la TV paga en términos de, que estoy muy de acuerdo con lo que decía Horacio, que estamos en entretenimiento y, bueno, y compitiendo con un montón de, yo diría, de contenidos, ¿no? Que eso es un gran tema, ¿no? para charlar. Lo que digo es, la dinámica y la heterogeneidad nos lleva a trabajar con trackings permanentemente y a partir de los trackings hacer algo que, aunque parece, como se dice, no sé cómo se dirá en inglés, pero de perogrullo, es lograr entender a través de esos trackings que tienen que ser parametrizados y homologados, cuáles son las distinciones por país y por región y por varias cosas que también ya se comentaron. Y a partir de ahí trabajamos mucho con estudios ad hoc y ahí viene la retroalimentación, en donde lo que digo es, a partir de una visión transversal y unificada, poder generar la distinción en cada país y que sea un círculo virtuoso, donde yo también tomo lo bueno o lo riesgoso o la oportunidad o la debilidad de un país y la puedo extrapolar después a la región. En definitiva, lo que se busca es poder generar investigaciones que nos den una plataforma accionable, toma de decisiones y acción a nivel global, región y a nivel local. Para eso hay que trabajar muy cerca y con un equipo local, no hay manera, con un conocimiento local, que tenga una logística local, un conocimiento del research local, un conocimiento de cómo se pondera y cómo se define una muestra a nivel de cada país. De esa manera lo estamos haciendo nosotros y creemos que es una buena forma de hacerlo.
Preguntar a la audiencia, alguien tiene, sé que hay muchos investigadores, hay clientes, hay agencias. Does anyone have a question on this particular point? No? Okay. Tomas, I wanted to ask you a little bit, if we can move on to the pay TV sector research, and if you can, talk about some of the main issues: transparency, standards, piracy, and the reporting. You want to talk about how that could be improved, best practices.
Yeah. Well, that actually is a wide question, so I will, tackle things little by little. Why are our methodologies the way they are? Because, as Giovanni just said, in Latin America, this trust is the rule. We cannot trust on any source of information without really questioning what was your methodology to get these numbers. So our methodologies, for getting all the pay TV information, market sizing, pay TV penetration, underreporting, piracy indexes, to see what cable operators, what packages they offer, how much they are charging for those. We do our homework. We do desk research, of course we do that. We rely on official entities' numbers. We take those, but we do not trust those numbers. We just, because they rely on information that cannot be really trusted. They have no methodology to do that. So we take as well cable operators' numbers, how many subscribers they say they've got. And we take as well our programmers' numbers. we do sign like confidentiality agreements, and we get those numbers and we compare the three of them. They're not the same. They are never the same. Numbers are always different because they might be biased for different reasons, but they're never the same. So we do our desk research, we do as well personal interviews, and we do as well, the most important of all, we crawl through Latin America. We have like this huge data center that makes calls and makes contacts and makes mystery shoppers to cable operators to get reliable data. So what I'm trying to say is, methodology for the paid TV industry in Latin America is mostly about, seeing what your methodology is and getting the most reliable data you can by going and look it up yourself, because we cannot trust any other source of data. And in terms of methodology, what we do is we build from the bottom to the top. So what we do is we go from town to town, making penetration studies, seeing and finding out what cable operations are out there. We make the penetration studies to realize how many subscribers each and single one of those cable operation has. And we also check which channels they have in their lineup. And we do not do that relying on the cable operations information, because most of them don't even have a website, so you cannot go check it out there. If you give them a call, they will tell you, maybe they tell you, maybe they don't, but if they tell you that the entire grid of channels, they might leave some channels out. Why is that? Because there are plenty, and by saying plenty, I really don't want to say all of them, but there are a lot of cable operators that steal at least one channel. One of the channels in their grids might be stolen. So they're not going to give you all the information on stolen channels. They're not silly. So what we rely on is on information on the households. We call the households that have hired that cable operation in their houses, and we ask them, what channels do you have? And that is when the real information comes up. How much, which channels they have, how much they are paying, and that is the reliable information. So when I was talking about previously, coming up with methodologies that are ad hoc to our Latin American reality, this is it. We have to go from town to town, finding out what the real information is. We cannot rely on official entities. We cannot rely on what cable operators say. We have to go and get that information by ourselves. And in terms of costs, this is quite complex because going from town to town in Latin America, that is not an easy job to do. It's not cheap, but we managed to come up with a methodology that is cost efficient for our clients. And that is the most important thing. And when Giovanni was talking about social media and how quick the Latin American population is adapting to social media. We are moving as well towards online panel and things like that, that are much, much cheaper methodologies. But that kind of methodologies cannot be trusted yet because, how long will it take us to get to online panels to be the only source of information? I don't know if it might take us like 5 or 10 years maybe. We hope to get there as soon as possible because costs are much cheaper there. But I think it will take us a while. So in the meantime, we really need to find a way to uncover piracy, uncover underreporting figures, and realize what we have to do with that. Because that is the other part of the problem. That is the second part of your question. How do we find out, piracy levels? How do we find out about underreporting levels on the cable operations? And what do we do with that? Where do we see that going? In Latin America, I believe it is, we have like 40% of piracy, and we have like 17% of underreporting. Then, if you sum those figures, you have like 31% of the paid TV market in Latin America is under illegal circumstances. What are we doing about that? What is going on with that? I mean, in Latin America, right now it is like 60% paid TV penetration, and we have 30% of illegal situations. That is a huge amount of illegal situations. And what we have to do is, and this is, our methodology, and what we do with our clients is we try to fight piracy, we try to fight underreporting, getting all this transparent information, and we try to fight piracy and underreporting with our clients. That is the only way to do it. And we try not to say, we were part of this in Argentina, but when we started coming up with these numbers in Argentina, underreporting and piracy was a huge issue. And now it has dropped a lot because we have worked for like 15 years now with our clients, trying to find out what cable operations incur in underreporting issues and which ones are stealing the channels. And we go there with lawyers, we go there with accountants, and we try to fight that. And it's not cheap, it's quite costly to do it. But when we see the size of what are we losing in the market, how many households we are losing due to piracy, we really need to pay attention to that. We really do. And if we rely on market research done only in the main cities, we won't be able to do it. So we really need to go town to town in each of Latin America's town and find those problems and try to solve them. And one last thing I wanted to point out is, I was, the previous week I was in NCDA in Boston, and everyone was, the fuss was all about TV everywhere and OTT, and HD is already a thing of the past. So now everyone is talking about smart TVs and all, and we need to go there as well. That is the right direction to go. We need to go as well to social media. We need to go to apps. TV everywhere is like this huge amount, this huge opportunity the whole industry has. But what are we going to do with our piracy and underreporting issues? That question remains. And why is this important? Because when we see the market potential for TV everywhere or OTT, that is still quite small in Latin America. I mean, it is the right way to go. Everyone needs to be there. Programmers need to be there. Cable operators need to be there. MSOs need to be there. You cannot lag behind. But what is going to happen when that moves from urban areas to rural areas, where everyone is stealing their cable connection? They are not going to stop stealing things and start paying for the OTT, the TV everywhere, the digital package, the HD. It won't be that easy. So we really need to find a way to tackle those problems right now before we start losing other bigger opportunities when the years go by.
It's about getting a sound foundation, right? To grow from there, right?
Yeah.
Thank you, Tomas. John, from a little bit more from the investment perspective, you have obviously fiduciary responsibilities for your investors. How do you evaluate Latin American media and advertising research on one hand? And what do you do to produce your own research to take, the correct investment decisions or sound investment decisions?
So I guess I'll just focus on media and advertising companies specifically. If you look at the types of things that we do when we look to make an investment or to buy a company, we look at, for these types of businesses, 3 different areas. I mean, the first area is what are the general market trends? And the market trends I mean by what is the ad spending across different platforms, TV, radio, print, online, how is that trending? What are the different pricing in those categories? Which directions are they generally headed? What are some predictions of that in the future? So we look at that. The next thing we look at is what is the typical underlying consumer behaviors? So especially for online companies, what's the audience? How often do they visit? How long do they spend? How many ad impressions do they serve? And that's something that we get a sense of, okay, where are they spending their time? Where are the different trends there? And then finally, if you look at advertising in general, the consumer is actually driving the traffic, but they're not necessarily, unless they're paying for some subscription, they're not the ones paying for the media. I mean, the media is sponsored by advertising, and then we take a look at what are the different advertising categories, like auto or consumer packaged goods or industrial, and how are they looking at taking their spend and allocating across the different platforms, and then what are the pricing things there. So in the United States, when we make those types of analyses, we have some general good secondary research. I mean, no research is perfect, but there's enough scale and enough homogeneity that I think that there's good belief in the U.S. traffic numbers as reported by ComScore. eMarketer does a good job of looking at how the splits among the categories are. There's an Ad Age report called FactPack that looks at by agency and by how are they spending their dollars across different platforms. So in the United States, we have that information. In Latin America, when we look at investments and look at companies there, because there's a variety of different countries, and those situations require that if you slice and dice the data that granular, you're just not going to get enough scale and enough substance to be able to understand exactly what some of the trends are. So, when we look at doing that research, there are some companies that do that. So, for example, eMarketer has started to go in Latin America, and in partnership with Starcom, they've started to publish a global media intelligence report that looks at ad spend across different categories, and they're predicting, for example, that right now internet's only 1.75 billion out of the 31 billion Latin advertising, but that's projected to grow and double in 4 years or so to be like 4 billion out of like 40 to 45 in 2015. There's some things that are country specific, like Net Ratings, which is a US company. They established a partnership in Brazil with Ibope to measure kind of traffic and consumer trends there. And so, there are things happening, but I guess if you look at what's missing that we see is that there's not enough granularity. So specifically internet, there's not enough granularity in how that splits up between display, mobile, search, lead generation. ComScore, which is a big US provider of research information about who's visiting which sites. In Latin America, they don't track internet cafe traffic, which is a big portion of where the traffic comes from. So that's not being part of the measured audience. And there's some things in terms of below the line situations, like point of sale, events, promotions, that really no marketing research firm that at least we've seen does a really good job of measuring that. So I guess the issues that for us as an investor is we have to do a little bit more primary research, and that primary research means hiring a consulting firm to do a specific project on a client or a target company. So we would hire somebody to say, hey, look at in Argentina how print is shifting to online, and interview different companies and figure out and do a survey and find out when that shift is occurring and how much are they going to pay for that advertising. So we'll do that, and then sometimes we have to do our own primary research where we actually go out and talk to these agencies and advertisers directly and almost do a survey ourselves. So, I think as the other platforms mature enough and get scale relative to, say, the more traditional radio, print, and TV, I think the multi-platform story and research is going to get there. Right now, the difficulty is, since we're talking a small sliver of a larger number, and that sliver has to be cut a lot of different ways to be able to, for us to make enough granular analysis to feel comfortable about a specific investment company. That's where it breaks down now. But I think since everything's growing, it's just a matter of time before the scale and the richness of the data will accompany that.
Thank you, John. Does any questions arise from the audience? Please.
Hi, I'm Robert Mercado with BBC Latin America. I have a question for Tomas Gennari. Regarding the Out of TV 3.0, what was presented before, I'm just curious, is that like somehow going to work in tandem with Ibope, TGI, and their sample? Are you going to use their, somehow use their sample or their distribution of samples so that you could get that research? Is that like a baseline for you guys? Are you guys working in tandem, or is it like competitors? Or please explain.
Yeah, I understand the question. In terms of how the panel is formed, what you need to understand is that our panel is distributed by towns. So, when we need to gather the information from a single cable operator, from one single town, just a tiny town, say, for example, Chile, so we need to call 3 or 4 maybe households from that town to get the information of what cable operator they have, what channels they've got, how much they're paying, if they have a digital package or not, if they have HD channels. So there's really no need to form a panel that is demographically correct or by socioeconomic levels, because the package they receive, it'll be, that depends on the cable operator and not on, what that household is like. So, in terms of what we do, as we have to call town by town, it's not the same as, what maybe IBOPE or TGI do, because what they need to do is they need to weigh their panels, because they need to find out, according to each and those, demographic and socioeconomic levels, what are their consumption levels, and what kind of media they consume as well. So they need to weigh those panelists correctly. So what we are moving toward is, when we started talking about online panels and using that information, then we really need to grab that opportunity, and then we really need to start weighing our panelists. Because if we need if we are going to move forward to our level of information that is really granular, and you can go from town to town, if we want to do that in each town, and if we want to move forward, like consumption levels, what kind of, what brands they have, and if they remember this or that advertisement, and if they watch this or that channel, then to get reliable results, we need to weigh the panel. But that is not the case at this moment for that particular service that is Audit TV.
Okay.
So he's asking about our sample, if it is demographically representative. In terms of the methodology, it doesn't need to. Because as it is, from town to town, we really don't need to make it representative in terms of demographics and socioeconomic levels. There's no need for us to do that, because it's more on what the cable operators are offering, and not so much on how that household is consuming the television or the cable service. Okay, sorry. When it comes to Audit TV, when you talk about penetration, then as we gather the information, we need to make, it is like 300,000 contacts a year. When we call all those households to make the penetration studies, then we need, one of the questions is, well, actually it's not one of the questions, this set of questions that are defined to set what socioeconomic level that household is, and some basic data. That is for the penetration studies, but not for knowing about the information on what cable operators are offering.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions? Well, I think this is, okay, back there.
Basically, my question is, well, my name is Byron Morales. I work for Payless, and for us, it's really hard to do a lot of TV analysis and basically get a good return of your money. And my base question to you guys is, since TV, it's really hard to do analysis and rely on TV based on what I'm hearing, do you guys really think that TV is a good way to invest in Latin America? Or are you guys recommending something else? Or, for example, is something else trending, or a different media vehicle trending more than TV? Because, I mean, it's really hard to, from what I can hear, should I invest $100,000 on TV? Is it really worth it? Or should I be investing my money on something else?
Do you mean
Is this for Tomas or for John?
Anyone that can answer the question.
Is that in terms of advertising or?
Yes, advertising.
Okay, I can take a short answer. In terms of advertising in television and other, other windows or other platforms that are, popping up right now, so far, unlike the U.S., where there has been a lot of chatter about cord cutting issues in cable television. We have seen, at least for now, we have seen none of that in Latin America. It's quite the opposite. You know, there is still plenty of room for growth in terms of pay TV penetration, in terms of fighting underreporting and piracy. And what we have is an effect of, you know, like a parallel effect between new technologies that are, you know, mostly in urban areas are being adopted, like, you know, TV everywhere and, you know, the second screen. That will take a while to get to the rest of Latin America. But, you know, in the meantime, while that is growing in urban areas, in the rest of the rural areas, there is still plenty of room for growth in pay TV penetration that is, you know, like the core right now. So, you know, I would advise to go for television and not so much for other platforms at this very moment. You know, this is a trend that most probably will change from now to the next 5 years or so.
Yeah, just very quickly, because we're...
Sure. And, you know, when I hear TV, I always have to ask the question, what's the delivery platform, right? So what TV really was just on a box a while ago, and I would look at markets that are both emerging and perhaps could be rich, you know, for advertising opportunities because of the demographic. And although the mobile advertising market really hasn't quite shaped up the way people expected, mobile adoption is so big in Latin America, particularly among younger folks, that I would take a serious look at that, particularly how it's playing out in Argentina and in Chile. I believe that, you know, there's some really interesting experiments and numbers there.
Yeah, and later in the summit, we will analyze advertising effectiveness and issues like that more in depth. Now, obviously, we did research, information production, and I think there are many takeaways. We're going to publish them on our website, and you definitely can continue the conversation at our break now, coffee break. Thank you very much to the four of you.
Thanks,